Is it all native land? I'm Brian Lilly with the Rebel.media. It is fashionable in much of the country for politicians, especially progressive ones, to start every speech or statement by acknowledging, I'm standing on the traditional territory of such and such First Nation. Even in Parliament, in provincial legislatures across the country, you'll hear this. In Vancouver, it's so commonplace, so expected, that at the Conservative Convention, they even opened with an acknowledgement they were standing on someone's territory. Well, now Environment Minister McKenna is using such statements to expand territory. McKenna gave a speech in Niagara Falls, Ontario. It was an address to the 37th Annual General Assembly of the Assembly of First Nations. Now, in the media advisory announcing the speech, it said she would be speaking on the treaty territory of the Six Nations of the Grand River. Really? Let's look at and read the official Government of Canada announcement on her appearance. That's important. This is an official Government of Canada announcement. It says, event, Assembly of First Nations 37th Annual General Assembly. Date, Wednesday, July 13th, 2016. Time, 1:15 p.m. EDT. Location, Treaty Territory of the Six Nations of the Grand River, Scotiabank Convention Centre, 6815 Stanley Avenue, Niagara Falls, Ontario. That last part, the end, it's interesting. 6815 Stanley Avenue, Niagara Falls. I'm from down them parts, and I can tell you the Scotiabank Convention Centre on Stanley Avenue is nowhere near the treaty territory of the Six Nations of the Grand River. The Six Nations came to that part of Canada in the 1780s after fighting for the British in the American Revolution. They were originally from the Finger Lakes region of New York State. But after fighting on what was the losing side, they did what so many British subjects did. They moved to Canada. The Six Nations are about as traditional to that area as any white settler that got a land grant, because that's what they were given. They were given a land grant for their loyalty to the Crown. Now, that original grant was 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. That was later shrunk for various reasons, including the Six Nations deciding to sell off parts of their land, but they still have a rather large reserve known as Ohsweken. But even if you take the original land grant of 6 miles either side of the Grand River, Minister McKenna just expanded the Six Nations territory exponentially. The closest that the Grand River comes to Niagara Falls is near Dunnville, Ontario, where the Grand empties into the north shore of Lake Erie. How far away is that? It's about 60 kilometers or 37 miles, so well beyond the 6-mile claim. Minister McKenna should know better. Like me, she's from down them parts. She's the same age as me. We're both from Hamilton. We went through the exact same school system. I know this, but she doesn't. Maybe I just spent more time out at the reserve or in the nearby town of Caledonia. But even at that, she should know better. And if she does know better and still made this statement, that's even worse, because what she's doing is providing false hope, false promises, as she speaks to the Assembly of First Nations. The area around Niagara Falls was never Six Nations territory. Once upon a time, it's believed it was the territory of the Neutral Band, but they were wiped out in a war with, you guessed it, the Six Nations. These types of statements are wrong. They're disingenuous, and they have to stop. Kathleen Wynne, she's forever doing the same thing. She gets up in Toronto, including at the legislature at Queen's Park, and says she's standing on the traditional land of the Mississaugas of the New Credit. Well, guess what? They sold that land to the governor of Upper Canada in 1787. They haven't lived there for more than 2 centuries. Now, they live near Lake Erie on what appears to be a nicely functioning reserve. But she won't stop saying it. Maybe it's fashionable to say these sorts of things, but it's also wrong. How far back do we have to go in this? Should McKenna have actually said she was standing on traditional neutral territory and then called out the genocide that took place against those very people in the mid-1600s by some of the ancestors of the people in the very room? I doubt that would have gone over very well. There are issues with land claims. We need to get them settled. But let's stop with this false piety, this virtue signaling, because that's what these statements really are all about. And let's stop expanding territory to people that never owned it, never occupied it, and can't even claim it.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.